Good morning, guys and gals. This is Nuke coming at you with another episode of Day Trading with Nuke. And we're going to be covering just a random assortment. Let's just hit the big 8 that I normally keep my eyes on, and then we'll cover AMD and maybe a couple others. But this is going to be like a shotgun because I really don't have a feel for what's going on. But we're going to talk about what I think could happen. So, without further ado, yesterday what we was looking at is the SPY had an amazing recovery, even a little bit past the 200% extension mark. And what that means for us today is moving forward. Overnight, she fell down a little bit, but since 2 o'clock this morning, she's been gaining a little bit of ground, even though it's had a few pullbacks. So what I'm looking at today in relation would be that we have a normal average true range for the SPY of $6.48, give or take. So from 241 up to about 252, this would be about correct. So if we're going to see a rise to the upside, I would expect to see it come out around 252. If we see her drop down to the low side, I would expect to see that test close to the 247 before traversing on down to the 236. Now, if it doesn't come up and test that fully, then we might be looking around 232-ish. All right, let's move on to a couple of tickers here. Apple, I know that's one of the ones y'all love to hear about, right? Oh, get out of there. I don't want you there. All right, so Apple made a hell of a recovery yesterday where it just skyrocketed, right? And it's been having an average true range of about $6. But yesterday, in particular, it was $10.25. So, wow, well over 25% more, if my math is right, which it rarely is, movement than what we would have expected to see. So what we're looking at today is, just like the SPY, it's fell off slightly overnight. It's had a little bit of a gap down, but then it's slowly creeping back up. I would expect that if Apple gets some traction behind it today, what we could see out of this is if it breaks out of this pre-market channel of 157 on the high side to 154.25 on the low side, I would expect to see that this thing would jump up to 160.85 on the high side, maybe drop down as low as 150.95 on the low side. And if it gets even beyond that, we'd be looking at the 164 on the high side, 147 on the low side. Next up, we're going to be going into Amazon, which, oh, come on, click over, AMZN. Amazon's a little rich for my taste, but it's always amazing. It had a hell of a good day yesterday, just up and up and up. But overnight, it gapped down a little bit. Today, I would expect to see if we continue to climb, we'd probably be looking at Amazon to touch up around 15.27 on the high side, and then if it really got going, maybe 15.70 if it hits that 200% mark. However, if they decide to come on back down, our key areas, if they break out of this pre-market high to low, let's go over here like this, if it breaks out of this pre-market high to low, the low side might be 13.96 on a bad day, and a horribly bad day we'd be looking at 13.53. But kind of leaning towards today might be more of a green day. We'll just have to stand by and see, right? BA, what's BA looking like? It had been falling off, and then yesterday with everything else on the SPY, it had a hell of a day, right? Average true range of about $13.50, and the problem we're running into is currently we don't have a very good pre-market action to judge off of by. So we'll just zoom in on this a little bit, and we'll go with the numbers that we do have. So we're looking at the high side. If it breaks out of the pre-market high to low channel of 314 on the high side, 309 on the low side. On the high side, if it follows normal patterns, it gets up around to the 319 at the 100% extension. If it has a great day, we'd be looking at 324 on the 200% extension. To the downside, 100% is 303 and 200% is 298. Next up we're going to look at is going to be BABA. BABA always provides some good quality action, and yesterday did not disappoint. Normally it sees about $5 range of motion, and the pre-market action for that, we're looking about double that. So I would kind of be leaning towards a little consolidation. This is a hell of a pre-market range, right, because of the gap down. We'll zoom in just a little bit more. Basically 138.84 on the high side, 134.60 on the low side. The 100% extension of that is 143 on the high side, 147 on the low side. If it does break down, this 130 is going to provide some really good resistance on the bottom if it did decide to go back down a little more. So we'll have to see what the SPY does. We'll go. So moving on from there, we're going to take a look at an NVIDIA. And yesterday it had this hell of a drop right out of the gate. Once it found its resistance, or support rather, it had a hell of a climb back up, and then 100% extension, right? So what are we looking at, right? So today's pre-market is just a little bit bigger than yesterday's, but the action's probably well, it's looking a little bit more. So on the high side, we'd be looking at a possibility of up to about 137.92. And if it breaks to the downside, we'd be looking down towards about 124 unless the bottom really falls out. And how that holds up to yesterday, if you draw that line across, it looks really good. So I'm fairly confident with these numbers. Next up, we're going to talk about Tesla. Tesla, good range of motion right out of the gate, and then a hell of a range of motion after that. Wouldn't have expected that. But it's fallen off all morning long. So what are we looking at for Tesla? If it continues this downtrend and doesn't retest, the pre-market high is 326, pre-market low of 317, but I'd actually be expecting this one to fall back down to 307, and if it has a really horrible day, possibly 298. I doubt we'd see the 200% extension. That looks a little, or 300% extension. That looks a little too much. 293 might hold. 293.86. So like right at 294. 294 might hold some ground because that was the low of yesterday. And then if it broke to the high side, 336 on the high side is about what I would expect to see out of it. And if it has an amazingly great day, we're talking maybe 346. I'm a little more biased towards down on Tesla today, though. All right, next up is going to be Netflix. And, we ain't even going to touch this one. God, I don't know where this one's going to go. Let's see. We'll zoom this in just a little bit. Man. 14, let's call it. God, this is just ugly. Currently, it's $14.97 on pre-market high. Somewhere around $14.54 on the pre-market low. If it goes up higher than that, maybe $15.44 on the high side, $14.03 on the low side. Just Netflix, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It needs more development this morning. Maybe that's a charting issue through Thinkorswim. That could also be very likely. Facebook had a great day. Hit that 100% really quick. Came back down to the pre-market high, and then it skyrocketed 300%. I don't expect to see that much growth again today, but the pre-market action is huge. So if it doesn't hold this upward trend and it breaks to the downside, once it gets out of the pre-market range of 134.54 on the high side with 131.10 on the low side, if it goes down, maybe 127.66 on the low side, yeah, And on the high side, 137.98. That's about what I'd be looking at of that. And then we're going to cover AMD just because I love it. Can't get enough of it. Yesterday, fell off, went 100% down, came back to pre-market, came back down to pre-market low, broke the pre-market high, then came back past the 100, hit the 200. So today what that looks like is if we can get out of this pre-market high to low channel of 1792 and 1730, on the high side we'd be looking at about 1854, and on the low side 1668. If it gets ridiculous, maybe 1916 on the high side and 1606 on the low side. But the low side, that 16, expect to see really solid support there. And that 1916 on the high side, that'd be a hell of a jump for it. So that's what I got for you guys. If you notice, there's a few things different. We've got the layout in the background. I had to change the room around to help accommodate the wife and her channel. Got some new hardware over the weekend. Got a new set of eyes. Those are helping out amazingly. But look forward to a little more time in the room. Look forward to this coming year. God, I'm so excited, guys. So anyway, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to go ahead and get this thing out of here for you, and I'll see y'all soon. Stay green.